is Dr. Kristal Clemons. I have the pleasure of serving as your facilitator this morning. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. All right. So I'm going to minimize this, and I'm actually going to mute myself, my screen, just because we want to preserve bandwidth. And then when we have our discussions, I'll come back on the video, okay? All right. So welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. I love FAMU. I love the College of Education, and I'm just so happy to be speaking with you all this morning. So today's workshop is going to be covering the information about the professional education exam, professional educational subject area test for the Florida Teacher Certification exam. And we're going to go through some instructional strategies. This is our agenda. And I was just telling Amber, because it's just a few of us, we don't necessarily have to take the breaks, but I wanted to build them in just in case you needed them. So we're going to go over the first 4 competencies, and then next week we'll cover the next 4 so that we get through all of the 8 competencies. All right, so let's talk about the icebreaker. If anyone can just take a moment and read through and let me know which icebreaker you would like to address. Amber just shared, was starting to share hers, so I'll ask her to get back on and share hers. But Bianca, if you can take a moment and read through and let me know.
Hello, Bianca. My name is Amber. I was sharing with Dr. Clemons that previously last semester I actually set out. I was not enrolled in school because I unfortunately did not meet the mark of 200 for my GK exam. I think it was the math one. I was 2 points off, and so with that being said, I couldn't do my student internship. I didn't have any more classes to take at FAMU, so I just decided to sit out for that semester and become very focused with passing my exams. And I ended up passing all of the GK within like the first month of school. So I was a little bummed out about that, but I was also grateful that, you know, I was able to get it done. But I was just like, man, having that determination and that drive really helped me because, I mean, this semester I'm enrolled in school. I'm doing my student internship right now. So it all worked out because I think I just needed that mental break in that time for myself to recoup and just get my A game going on. So that's something that I'm recently proud of. I'm proud of myself for that. And right now I'm just trying to focus on passing the professional because COVID happened and I wasn't able to take my professional test.
Thank you, Amber.
Okay.
Bianca, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Let us know where you are in the program and answer one of our icebreaker questions.
Yes. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My name is Bianca. I'm a 3rd-year elementary education student from Miami. I actually went through the same thing Amber went through. I didn't pass my GK, the math, and the ELS, so I had to sit out fall semester. That's probably the biggest thing that has impacted me, and I'm really bad at math, so that's kind of just what I'm struggling on to pass. And then I recently took the professional ed, and I got a 184, so minus 16 points makes me want to study harder.
Absolutely. I want to push back a little bit on your language. We don't want to say that we're not good at math. We want to say that we are developing our math efficacy, right? So think about the language that we use when we're talking about our capabilities and what we can do, because what you'll see from this workshop today is that it's really about studying for this particular test. Has nothing to do with your intellectual capabilities, because you all are brilliant, bright young minds, okay? So I
Yes,
just
ma'am. Thank you.
welcome. Yeah, I just want to challenge us to be, we have to speak life over what we're doing, and because
Yes.
we don't want to claim that we're not good in math because we can
Right.
balance books. We can go to the grocery store. We know how to do what we need to do.
Still wanted to say something after that, after you're
Go
done.
for it.
So the biggest thing that really helped me that semester, Bianca, when you said you weren't good at math and how Dr. Clemons was talking about speaking positive affirmations, for me that was the biggest thing because I kept saying I can't pass the GK, like I just can't pass it. I don't know why I can't pass it. And then once I realized, like, Amber, you have to stop saying you can't pass it. You have to start saying, I can pass this GK. This GK is nothing. Like, I've been through school. I'm in college right now. I can do this. And so I started writing daily affirmations. Like, I don't know if you ever seen Being Mary Jane, but I went Mary Jane crazy. Like, I started posting notes, little post-it notes all over my room. Like, I actually took my unofficial score, and you know how it says not pass? Like, I whited out the part that says not, and all I saw was pass and my name in this title, and I had that right on my door, and I looked at that every day before I left the room or wherever I was. Like, I just had to create a positive environment for me, and like it really helped me a lot. When I went to take the test, I was super calm. I have really bad test anxiety, so these are things that helped me, and I knocked it right out the ballpark. So I think that that'll be a good suggestion for you to use if you think it could help you as well. But yeah,
Absolutely,
Okay.
positive affirmations, girl.
Thank you.
You're
yeah,
welcome.
Amber. That's excellent. All right. Well, thank you all so much for sharing a little bit about yourself. I'll just give a quick run through of what I've done. I've been a professor in higher education since 2009. I've taught at Florida State, I've taught at Florida A&M, taught at Tallahassee Community College, and now at Virginia State University. I recently just left Virginia State University to take on a national director position with the Children's Defense Fund. So I'm working with freedom schools nationwide. So that would definitely be something that I recently have done that I'm really proud of, is, stepped out of my comfort zone a little bit to work on something different. My research has been with with freedom schools in 1964 Mississippi Freedom Summer. And the courses that I used to teach, particularly at FAMU, were related to students passing these Florida teacher certification exams. And so one of the biggest things I used to tell my students was, you have to study the way to take the test because you have the knowledge. And so that's what we're going to work on today. All right, so let's break down the test format. I know you all know this, and I'm trying to figure out, there we go. Yeah, let's get this little text box to the side. The test format, all right? So you all know this. It's about 110 multiple choice questions, right? You have 2.5 hours to complete the test. And thank you all. Excuse me. If I stop, it doesn't mean that I have fallen off. It just means that I'm working with my children in the background. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Oh, you're
All
fine.
Thank you all. So you're going to have 2.5 hours to complete the test. Each of the questions will contain 4 response options, okay? And so remember, you have to choose the best response to that, each question, okay? So it has an 80% passage rate, okay? And I share this with you all because I want you to keep in mind, most standardized tests are designed to, make people feel like they can't do it, right? These are what we call the stratification points within the different career fields. Every discipline, for the most part, especially if you're in a professionalized discipline, whether it be law, medicine, education, all of those things, you have some sort of exam, whether it be a board test or the bar exam or a teacher certification exam, okay? So just know that only 80% of the first-time test takers passed, okay? And so sometimes we put this undue pressure on ourselves, and you may have to take it again, and that's okay. The main thing is that we spend our time feeling prepared for the test. And so one of the things that I've noticed in the past is that students think they can just wake up and go take the test. Don't do that, right? We want you to create a schedule for yourself and breaking down the test topics into different weeks so that you have enough time to study each topic. We're also going to talk briefly about which classes you can think about that you've taken in the program, in the College of Education, to match the various competencies, okay? Typically what test takers say they wish they had known as it pertains to this test is that they watch for questions that include the words not or except, which indicates you need to choose the answer choice that does not apply, right? So really paying attention to the wording of the question. Also, students mentioned keeping an eye on time because you want to make sure you complete the test within the time frame, okay? And then lastly, I've noticed some students leave questions blank, and you don't ever want to do that. So do your best to take an educated guess, right? And you might even have to go back to the question, and mark it so that you know you need to come back to it, okay? Try not to leave questions unanswered because at least when you take an educated guess, you have a 50-50 chance at getting it correct, all right? Does that make sense to everybody? Does anybody have questions so far with my first few slides?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. We'll keep going. All right, so let's go to the type of questions you're going to see. And this is really important for you all to be able to identify. When you're looking at the test prep books, when you're looking at the simulations online, and even when you're sitting before the actual test, you have to think through, is this a direct question? Is this a sentence completion question? Or is this a scenario question? Okay? And let's break this down. So a direct question is probably like a definition type of question. So you want to choose the response option that best answers that definition, okay? The sentence completion response is something that is like a key point that's being left out of a main idea or concept of a question, okay? And then the scenario question is going to give you like a case study. So Johnny has problems seeing the board. What type of things can you do to help mitigate some of the challenges he's experiencing, right? So the answer, you will have to evaluate a situation, a problem, or a case study, and then you're going to answer a question, you're going to make a diagnosis, or you're going to provide a recommendation for a course of action by the best response option that they have before you on the test. This is where your textbooks and your coursework is going to come into play, because most of the faculty members in the College of Ed, they give you some real life scenarios and give you the opportunity to say, okay, according to the text, right? Or according to evidence-based research, or according to the best practices, how would you help Johnny in this scenario? All right. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Do you all want to talk to me just briefly about these three questions? And do they give you pause? Do they give you challenges? What do you think about the different types of questions? And has anyone ever broken down the types of questions for you like this?
I don't think so, no. But they make a lot of sense because as I was listening, I was thinking like, okay, yes, there are scenario questions on there.
Okay. Okay. And do you feel that the direct questions, sentence completion questions, and the scenario questions, which one gives you the most trouble or gives you the most challenge?
I know for me, when I took the test, the scenario questions were a little confusing because, like, they would give you the scenario and then you would have to, like, choose from a set of answers. and majority of the answers I wasn't familiar with. So I have to kind of just make sure that I understand scenario questions and how do I guess comprehend it from there.
Okay, good. So if this is what you know ahead of time, so then you might want to spend 2 weeks just on scenario questions. Okay, Bianca?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And so think through, you have to think through which questions give you the most issues. Now, when you all took the test, I know they give you immediately if you pass or fail right away, but don't they send you the full report a couple days later?
Yeah, it's about 2 weeks later.
Okay, now I have not seen that report in a very long time. Talk to me about what that report tells you. Does it give you insight on the types of questions you had the most challenges on?
It's a list of the competencies, and then it tells you your score that, well, the score that you scored, and then it shows you the score of the average number of people who was to get it right.
Oh,
And then, well, but that score is like a certain percentage, so like 30% or 50%. It doesn't necessarily tell you like the types of questions inside of each competency. It just gives you the competency, your score, and the average score. I
okay.
feel like there's something else I'm missing. Is there something else on there, Bianca?
I think you hit it right on the notch.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Sorry about that. That's good to know because what they're doing is giving you the average, right?
Mm-hmm.
Based on your peers who took the test at that time period.
Yeah.
So then it's going to be on you all to really break down and study types of questions, okay? All right, so that's good. That's very good. All right, let's move on. All right, so today I wanted to cover, so you know the test has 8 competencies, right? We're going to break down competencies 1 through 4, and then next weekend we'll break down competencies 5 through 8, all right? So I just wanted to have a discussion about what these mean to you when you see the competencies, all right? So competency 1, knowledge of instructional design and planning. Competency 2, knowledge of appropriate student-centered learning environments. Competency 3, knowledge of instructional delivery and facilitation through a comprehensive understanding of the subject matter. And then knowledge of various types of assessment strategies for determining impact on student learning. So let's break these down. All right, and I'm going to mute my screen because I have to be able to whole thing. Okay, can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, so competency 1 is huge, y'all. Look at all of this. So let's break this down and let's think through what they're really asking us, all right? So when they're talking about knowledge of instructional design and planning, first of all, what is instructional design?
Might that be your lesson plans that you create for your students?
Okay, lesson plans. Good, what else? Anything else?
Your classroom, well, not necessarily, but it could be also your classroom environment.
Okay, good. So think about this. You as a teacher, you are a content expert. And how do you get that content into the hearts and minds of your young people that you're teaching, right? You have to have a methodology or an instructional design plan in order to disseminate the information, okay? So really, it's about the methods. So yes, it is about lesson plans, but it's also about the methods. It's about the strategies, and it's about your evaluation instruments that you're going to use to help students understand how they're doing in their various courses or at the various grade level, okay? It's also talking about cooperative learning, guided reading, Bloom's taxonomy, right? So those are kind of the, you know, examples of the types of instructional design methods, right? Are you culturally responsive? Are you learner-centered, right? Do you think about students' prior knowledge when you're developing a lesson plan? Do you have a pre and a post assessment so that you can understand where the students were and then any learning gains? Okay, so what makes this part really challenging is you have to look at 1 through 10 and you have to kind of think through all of the scenarios that could play out in a typical classroom with this one competency, okay? This accounts for 18% of the test, okay? Any questions on this? Any questions?
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay, okay, great. Uh-oh. Sorry, I stopped sharing for a minute. Let me go back to sharing. Okay. All right, so now let's dive into some sample questions. Okay, let's, Bianca, I want you to read this question.
Okay. What initial action should a teacher take prior to requesting that a student be evaluated for special education services? And you want me to read the answers or no?
Yeah, choose an answer.
I would say the answer is D.
You would say the answer is B.
D as in dog.
Okay, read the answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Scheduling a meeting with the school guidance counselor and the parents to design a plan of action.
Okay, so why would you jump to D?
Honestly, like reading all the answers, I know that like when it comes to like a student being evaluated, you most likely you have to discuss it with the parents as well.
Right.
B would be the answer because informing the special education teachers that another student will be placed with them, and you're not really sure if they need special education services, isn't the right answer. And A would cause maybe a problem.
Yes.
Because you're not sure what the issue is just yet, so going to the principal is a little too early. So I was kind of stuck between C and D, but I figured that the answer was D because now you have to, get the counselor involved so they understand what's going on, and you guys can all work together to come up with a plan so that the student can actually succeed.
Okay. Good. I like to see your thought process with that. Okay, Amber, let me tell me what you think.
Uh-oh, hello?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, I thought my laptop died. Yes, I can hear you. The screen had just went blank for a second. But I think I agree with all of her answers so far. However, I thought it was C, only because design a plan of action. I don't know. Design a plan of action. I just didn't think the guidance counselor should have been involved, but I could be wrong.
Okay, good, good. Okay, so this is where the correct answer is actually C. And so let's talk through this. So what initial action should a teacher take prior to requesting that a student be evaluated for special education services?
They have to ask the parents first.
Yes, exactly. So you have to really think through the question. So we know from our methods courses, we also know from multicultural education courses, right? So this is a question where you have to think back to your coursework. What all you know, because this is about student rights and this is about parent rights, right? But it's also about understanding instructional design and planning, okay? And so we really want to meet with the parents first to discuss different plans or alternatives for meeting the student needs. Now, if the student and the parent discuss that they don't, I mean, if the parent and the teacher find that they need more support, then scheduling a meeting with the guidance counselor, right, to put the plan together. Because we can't go to special education without any kind of input from the guidance counselors, right? So let's go back really quickly to see where this question falls on this competency list. Because what I'm trying to get you all to think through is how the different questions match the different competencies. So where does this fall between numbers 1 and 10?
Is that a number 10?
Yes, number 10. Excellent. And it could be 1 or 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say 2.
Yep. There we go. And then I can also see it being number 6, right? Because you're all trying to figure out the student's needs.
Oh, yeah.
And it could even
Yeah.
fall with number 4 as well, because you're trying to figure out the student learning needs and the performance levels. Okay.
Mhm.
So you all, when you're thinking about these questions, you have to think about, okay, this is how it matches, because it really is kind of a matrix when you're taking the test. Does that make sense? And is that helpful?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. All right, Amber, take this question.
Which of the following assessment strategies involves the systematic collection of students' work? I would say a portfolio, only because the portfolio is where you collect students' information, stuff that they've completed, and you can put it all in one folder to track their progress. Systematic strategies of collection of students' work is not necessarily in a presentation. A presentation is just kind of a one-time thing. You're presenting whatever needs to be presented at that given point in moment. Standardized test, yes, a standardized test can tell you where a student is with their information that they've retained. However, that's not necessarily a collection. Well, I guess it could be a collection from, I don't know, the beginning of that week until the end of that week. But yeah, I wouldn't say a standardized test. And a journal entry that can just be, those can be done every day, but sometimes they're not. So a portfolio would be the best answer.
Okay. Bianca, do you agree?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. That's correct. The answer is, I have it as number 1, but it should be A, but the answer is portfolio. Okay, excellent. And so this was one of those direct questions, right? So it's basically giving you a particular definition and that you have to come up with the right answer, okay? And the question before that was more of like a scenario question. Can you all tell the difference between the questions now?
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Good job. Portfolio is the correct answer. All right, let's move on. Do you all need a break, or is it okay for me to keep going?
I'm fine.
Okay, awesome.
I'm fine as well.
Okay, so now let's talk about competency number 2, okay? So you're gonna need to go back and really read through the 8 points of competency number 2. And competency number 2 discusses knowledge of appropriate student-centered learning environments, okay? And so you wanna think through, right, the different techniques for organizing and allocating and managing resources, time and space, right? So is it gonna be, especially now, while we're all teaching remotely, Is it some of it face-to-face? Is it virtual, right? You want to
Yeah.
think about the different strategies and group dynamics. You know, how do you put students in teams? You want to think about modeling appropriate oral and written communication skills. So what you put on your board, having your morning meeting kind of things. You want to think about different communication technologies to maintain student learning center environment. So do you use Class Dojo? Do you use the Remind app, right? You have to think through, what do you do to keep everyone involved? Right now, my daughter is using Seesaw. Do you guys use Seesaw?
No, I've never heard of that.
Seesaw is an interesting app. It's embedded in Canvas, and students can go in, and because of the virtual nature of how they're learning, students can go in and take pictures of them writing in their notebooks and upload it to the teacher, and the teacher gives them feedback from the picture of the work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so all kinds, I mean, and the thing about it is, that's why they keep it vague, right? Because we know technology is ever changing. And so this is why teachers have to really stay on the cutting edge of knowing what's going on. And then this one here is identifying assistive technologies that enable all students to effectively communicate and achieve their educational goals, okay? And so sometimes you might need a screen reader, right? Sometimes you might need an interpreter, okay? So we're thinking about what we need, or you might have a deaf and hard of hearing student who might need sign language, right? So we have to think through what our students' needs are. Okay, now let's move on to some questions. Y'all ready? Okay, Bianca, your turn.
All right. Which of the following situations is the best example of a teacher promoting a climate of openness, respect, and inquiry in the classroom?
Okay.
I would say is number 2.
Okay, tell me your thought process.
I'm actually stuck between number 2 and 3 because my past class, I know that we have to develop like our lesson plans to our students' interests. But then number 2, establishing a variety of levels of instruction in a learning environment. I just feel like with that answer, you have to kind of just develop your lesson plan to meet the needs of all your students in the environment. So I'm kind of stuck on that one.
Okay. Okay. Amber, do you want to share?
I actually think, well, okay, it's between 3 and 4 for me, because you always want to promote student cultures that's like the student cultures in your classroom, that can create respect, inquiry, and openness, and just in general, because you're being open-minded to all the different ethnicities in your class. However, developing a curriculum that's consistent with the student interests is also important too. This question definitely you would have to know the skills under that specific competency.
Yeah.
Because I think that this actually is it's one of the skills. I just can't remember which one right now. So
Yeah.
my final answer would be, I would just say 4.
Okay, good. So the answer is 4. And let's talk about why. So let's go back to reading the question. Which of the following situation is the best example of a teacher promoting a climate of openness, respect, and inquiry in the classroom? And so if you go back to student-centered learning, right, we're talking about determining skills and practices that encourage innovation and foster a safe climate of openness, inquiry, equity, and support for all students. So it's directly connected to this part of the competency, okay?
Mhm.
And so that is aligned with promoting student cultures that are studied, shared, and celebrated. Any questions?
No.
No.
Okay, so again, it's just forcing us to think through the type of question and then aligning it with those standards. All right, let's move on. Good work, ladies, good work. It shows you how tricky the wording can be, right?
Yeah.
All right, another thing that I wanted to, before we get to this next question, you know, student-centered learning environment questions, they account for 15% of the test. In this section, it will test your knowledge on student-centered learning environments that's included but not limited to academic contracts, nonverbal communication, and various assistive technologies. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. All right, who wants to take this question? Whose turn is it?
I guess I'll go. A statement conveying a student's present academic and functional levels should be placed with the student's technology needs in a or an IEP. Well, I just know okay, that's so funny. Whenever you see IEP, I feel like that's the right answer. I didn't even look at the rest of the answer choices. 1 second, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
A weekly report to the parent, quarterly report home. Okay, so no, you don't want to send too many. I don't think you're supposed to send too many things home to the parent. Like, it's good to do like maybe a monthly report, but I don't think A is or number 1 is right. A quarterly report that can be okay. However, I just know whenever I see IEP, I was told by the NAVA Ed professionals to click that answer. Permanent file folder. I'm not even sure what that is. So
Yeah, that's
no.
permanent file folder is more like, you know, address, personnel information,
Okay.
kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay.
So I
What
should
about,
say 3.
okay, good. What about you, Bianca?
So for this question, like just looking at like presenting academic and functional level, as well as like the student technology needs, IEP would be good because that like it's pretty much everything about the student as far as like academic and like how they function in the classroom.
Excellent work, ladies. That's correct. Yes. So a statement conveying a student's present academic and functional levels should be placed within the student's technological needs in an individualized education plan. You are correct. And I like the process of elimination that you did there, Amber. Sometimes that's what we have to do in order to really think through the process of the questions. Because you're right, a permanent file folder, a quarterly report home, and a weekly report to the parent, that's not really going to do anything in terms of understanding their functional level within their academic needs as it, you know, particularly relates to students' technological needs.
Mm-hmm.
So good work. All right, I hope you all are feeling confident.
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. Very good. All right, so competency number 3. Okay, so this one is a really deep competency. It's, again, this is 18% of the test. And what you're gonna see is knowledge of instructional delivery and facilitation through comprehensive understanding of the subject matter. And so this is, remember when I was saying earlier at the first competency that teachers are really content experts? Mm-hmm. And then they have to make the curriculum come alive for the various types of learners in their classrooms. So this is what you guys do. This is what you all do for a living. You understand all of these different concepts. and you understand these subjects, and you are making it come alive for the students. So if you think about competency 3.1, use motivational strategies to engage and challenge all students. You know, you're applying appropriate instructional practices for developing content area literacy. Okay, you're analyzing gaps in students' subject matter knowledge in order to improve instructional delivery. So you may give them like a pre-reading assignment, or you might give them some sort of like pre-test, just so you can see where they are. You know, because if you're thinking, you know, all third graders understand the concept of geography as it pertains to social studies, but then when you ask them to point out Tallahassee on a map and they can't do it, you know that you're going to have to take a step back, right? Because you want to make sure that you're meeting the students where they are. Relate subject matter to life experiences across disciplines. Assess and adapt instruction to address preconceptions and misconception with the subject matter. And you know, one of the beautiful things about FAMU is that we teach real world communication with students and parents and families. You all really are beyond, in my opinion, culturally responsive, because you know not only what it means to be, you know, a person of color, particularly African American, but because you all are from different parts of the country, you know what it means to be Black in Miami, or you know what it means to be Black in Chicago. And understanding those lived experiences and you really meeting your students where they are, they really appreciate that, because, you know, it's like when a teacher can tell her class, all right, y'all, good job for reading that book. I love how everyone was able to write their sentences. Okay, today we're going to get lit. And we're going to use that term so that the kids get excited. But you're going to say, but we don't mean it as what you think lit is. We're going to get lit as in literary. You know what I'm saying? You can remix it for the kids, because you have the information to be, you know, hip and culturally responsive, but then you also have the content information. And so that makes you all so powerful as educators. Do you all see what I'm saying when I say that to you all?
Yeah.
Good, good. You're also applying techniques for developing higher order critical thinking skills. You're thinking about different strategies or appropriate technology that would be needed. You're determining and applying techniques to provide feedback in order to promote student achievement. And then you're also thinking about the appropriate subject area activities to accommodate different learning needs and developmental needs, right? And experiential backgrounds of all students, okay? So these are some things that you need to think about with this competency. So you're gonna have questions based on the community-centered teaching approach. You're gonna have questions about the learner-centered classroom. And then you're gonna have questions about feedback techniques, okay? And when I say a learner-centered classroom, you know, if you're in Tallahassee, you might want to make sure you have things up in your classroom that represent Florida A&M and Florida State, right? You may even want to have stuff that represents being from, you know, the different parts of Florida, because you just never know what a Tallahassee classroom represents. So you might want to have different cultural flags up, because why? We have lots of Latino children. We have lots of Haitian children. We have lots of Caribbean children. We have so many people, lots of indigenous, Native American children, depending upon where we are in the state. And so those are the things that we're talking about in terms of a community-centered teaching approach and a learner-centered classroom, okay? All right, Bianca, I think it's your turn. You wanna take a chance with this question?
Okay.
Oops, I'm sorry. Okay.
Hello? Y'all can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. At the beginning of a unit, a teacher gives a vocabulary quiz on major terms and concepts of the new unit. Such a formative assessment can identify students who I would say probably it's between 1 or 4 to me.
Okay.
But since they're learning a new unit, if I'm not mistaken.
Uh-huh. It's a new unit.
Would it be 4?
Okay, let me hear from Amber.
Such a formative assessment can identify students who I think have prior knowledge on the subject matter, because formative assessment is kind of just like on the spot. I don't know, like if you're for example, I'm a music intern, so like yesterday, I played a song for the students and I had them indicate to me on their shoulders what meter the song was, which was 4/4, so they had to put up 4. And if it's at the beginning of a unit, well, they had to put up 4 fingers. And so since for this question at the beginning of a unit, the teacher gives a vocabulary quiz on major concepts, I think the teacher is just trying to figure out who knows those major concepts or those those vocabulary words, so that she can use it to further her instruction on how she wants to plan out the rest of the unit.
Excellent. Okay. Yes, the correct answer is have prior knowledge of the subject matter. So trust your first instinct, Bianca, okay?
Yeah, like I can honestly say that, like during exams and stuff, like I'll have the right answer in mind, but then I'll start doubting myself, and then I end up choosing the wrong answer. So
Yeah, don't doubt yourself. Trust your first instinct. And I loved how you provided the rationale, Amber. So you gave, in your mind, you provided the definition of formative assessment. And then you thought about, okay, the teacher is giving a vocabulary quiz on major terms and concepts of the new unit so that they know how to continue with the rest of the unit.
Mm-hmm.
So I love, this is what I want you all to do. You need to go through this kind of thought process, because that's going to give you the power to say, yes, I know it's definitely prior knowledge of the subject matter. Because you got,
this is helpful. I've never done this before.
yeah, because you got to know, everyone knows you have to know what the students know before you can continue with the unit. Because if you find out that students are actually ahead of where the state standards say that they're going to be, you know, you teach to potential. You don't teach to the test. So you always teach to where your students can go. And it's always good to push them a little bit more, you know. So if they already know where Tallahassee is on the map, then you can go further than that. You can say, all right, so then now let's see what other cities they know in Florida. Okay, so then what region are we in? You see what I'm saying? We can broaden once we understand the prior knowledge. All right, excellent. Good job, ladies. Okay, just a few more. So whose turn is it? It's Amber's. Go ahead.
When a teacher asks students to make judgments based on a certain criteria, the teacher is developing either inquiry based on your skills, conflict. So it's not conflict. I do not think ask students to make judgments based on certain criteria. I don't think that is necessarily expository, only because she's just asking them to make a judgment. She didn't necessarily ask them to explain their thoughts on a certain criteria.
Okay.
Higher order thinking skills. It could either be higher order thinking skills or inquiry learning, because when you, I don't think it's 1. I don't think it's 2 or 3. So I think it'll be 4.
Okay, good deal. Bianca, tell us your thoughts.
this question, I'm honestly not sure, like what the answer is.
Okay, no problem. So Amber, I appreciate your thought process, because that's exactly what you want to do. For this kind of question, remember, if you go back to the earlier slide where we talked about the type of question this is a direct question, okay? And we're basically asking for a definition. So when a teacher asks students to make judgments based on certain criteria, the teacher is, and the key word here is make judgment. So you're not, inquiry is questioning, right? When you're doing an inquiry, you're thinking about, okay, what are the possibilities? Conflict resolution, you're trying to put together a plan of action for some scenario or issue. Expository writing, right? That's for you to really explore and for you to think through and to use your ability to kind of formulate an opinion about something. So higher order thinking skills is the correct answer, because for higher order thinking skills, we want to know, okay, how the thought process and the critical thinking process involved in order for students to make judgments based on a certain criteria that the teacher is presenting. So good work. But you'll have to, the thing about this one is you'll have to know the definition of these things.
Yeah.
Okay, so it may be kind of thinking through when you're in your test prep booklet and you realize that you don't know the definition of these things, make some flashcards. Okay, it could be digital flashcards, it could be, you know, paper flashcards, but you want to make sure you know the definition of these, because when the question comes up, then you can easily eliminate the wrong answers and select the correct one. Okay, does that make sense? Is that helpful for you all?
Yes, it's helpful.
Yes.
Okay, good. Very good. All right, so last competency, and then we're going to talk through some strategies on how to prepare. Okay, so competency 4, knowledge of various types of assessment strategies for determining impact on student learning. So again, remember I mentioned earlier, it's helpful to think back the classes that you took in order to understand what skill sets you learned in the different classes. So think back to the class where you learned about assessment. All right, and then these are the various points of understanding assessments, right? So we want to analyze assessment data from multiple sources to guide instructional decision. You know, we want to have a multiple choice option. We want to have a fill in the blank or written option. You know, we may want to have a opportunity for a student to present, okay? Because it all depends on the type of learner they are. We want to think about formative and summative assessments, excuse me, to match the different learning goals and objectives. Thank you. Leading to student mastery. You want to think about the variety of assessment tools to monitor student progress, achievement, and learning gains. Again, various types of tests, various types of opportunities to present. You want to think about ways to share the importance of outcomes of student assessment data with the student and the stakeholders. So this is where feedback really comes into play. Students want to know, they don't just want a check mark on their paper, right? They want to know, I wrote this part really well, this part needs changing, or, you know, I missed this step in the math equation, et cetera, or I missed this note, or I missed this verse in a music song. You know, you might have students analyzing lyrics and everything. And then finally, use technology to organize and integrate assessment data, okay? They have all these wonderful apps out now. Have you guys used Kahoot?
Oh, yes, I've used that before.
Yeah, so Kahoot is a really nice little assessment tool because all the kids in the class, you know, can have it on their device, and then you'll see, you know, they'll see that 50% of the students think the question of the answer is A, or, you know, or the answer is dog or cat. But the student sees where the class is in terms of understanding, where, you know, using technology to understand the information. All right. Okay, so let's go through some questions. Let's see, whose turn is it? Is it Bianca's turn?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, go for it.
Which accommodation for taking a multiple choice test would best serve a mid-level ELL student?
Okay, what do you think?
I'm stuck between number 2 and number 4.
Okay, good. Now, which one would you feel the most confident with?
Most confident would probably be number.
Follow your first instinct.
My first instinct is number 2. I don't know why, but I just feel like allowing the student extra time to complete it would be best. But it's weird because like number 4, I know like the class that I'm in now, TSL 4321, I know they also said like it's best to have the student answer the test questions orally, but I'm gonna just go with number 2. I don't know.
Okay, okay. I see your thought process. Good. What about you, Amber?
I think it's number 2, only because typically you'll have, like, for answers that has, questions that have options for number 4, those types of questions will be special accommodations for students who, like, I don't know, they can't see, like they can't read it, or well, they can hear it. Well, yeah, I don't know. It's just a little bit different. So I would just go with number 2. I'm sorry, my thought process is all over the place right now, but I've seen an answer like that before on the test, and it was with a complete different question that pertained to the student's capability, not necessarily just being an ELL student.
Got it. Good. Well, you all are both correct. It is B, or 2, allowing student extra time to complete the test. Okay? So, and really think about this. It's an accommodation, right? So the word that helps you get to this is an accommodation for taking a multiple choice test would best serve a mid-level ELL. So those are your 2 words here, the accommodation and then the mid-level ELL. Mid-level ELL, we're assuming that the student can read most of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that they're a little bit further along than, say, an English language learner who may not have mastery of the language yet. So by allowing the student extra time to complete the test, you're falling into that mid-level range, okay? If you permit the student to work, well, they wouldn't allow students to permit to work with another student for a test. So that you already know that's gone. And then having the student answer the test questions orally or giving the student a translation of the test, those are the 2 that would serve probably earlier on if the student had no understanding of English language at all, right? So you have
Okay,
to, you're gonna have to go back to what you said. What class was that again, Bianca?
TSL.
Yep. So go back to that class and think through the best practices in that class. Good work, ladies. Okay, last question.
I think it's me.
Yeah.
A student appears to be struggling with the reading subscale after initial instruction. The teacher wants to find out what component of reading is hindering comprehension. Which of the following assessments would best aid the teacher? Okay, so the student is struggling reading subtest after initial instruction. So she will probably want to give the student a diagnostic test, only because she's trying to find out what's hindering the student from the initial instructions. So screening, I'm not sure what a screening does, but I don't think a screening would necessarily tell you what the teacher would need to know to find out what's hindering that child's progress. Progress monitoring would typically be done after the diagnostic test is done, to see, okay, this is what's wrong. Now we have a plan. We're going to start implementing this plan, and now we're going to check the progress on it to see how well the plan is going, if anything needs to be done. And then an outcome measure, that sounds like a summative assessment, something that's done at the very end. So I don't think number 4 is correct either. So I
Very
would choose number 2.
Okay, good. Excellent. I love how you thought through that. Bianca, what do you think?
For me, I believe it is diagnostics as well, only because I know that's usually what most teachers use to find out like what area you're struggling in.
Uh-huh. Excellent. That's correct, ladies. Very good. See, first, trust your gut. Second of all, you know this content, right? A student appears. So this is, what kind of question is this, y'all? Is this a direct question? Is this a scenario question?
I think it's the scenario.
Okay, good. And then the other type of question that it could possibly be, hold on, I'm pulling up my notes because I don't want to mess it up. It's a sentence completion. So we know it's not a sentence completion. So yes, this is definitely a scenario question. So a student appears to be struggling with a reading sub-skill after an initial instruction. The teacher wants to find out what component of the reading is hindering comprehension, right? So is it phonemic awareness? Is it blending? What is it? Which of the following, or could be confidence, which of the following assessments would best aid the teacher, right? We simply do a diagnostic. See, the outcome measures, the progress monitor, and the screening, actually, you're right, screening wouldn't have anything to do with it, but the progress monitoring and the outcome measures, those would come later. Now that you've done the diagnostic, then you can start to think about how you're going to monitor the progress.
Mm-hmm.
Very good, ladies. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute, and I'm going to start sharing my video just so that we can wrap up, because on my last slide, I just have some techniques for you all. Okay, so the last thing I want to go over is to think through your coursework. I want you all to take this test very seriously and invest in yourself. And when I say invest in yourself, that means if you need to, work with a tutor, if you need to purchase another study guide, if you need to go to the Candidate Empowerment Center more than just the once a week that you're going, right? You need to do that. And then the last thing is pace yourself and study in chunks. A few years ago, I took a class called Learning How to Learn because I was trying to figure out how to teach my daughter, and I needed to understand the brain's capacity and what they could take on at various, developmental stages. And I highly recommend that course, actually. It was through Coursera, and it's just simply called Learning How to Learn. And that course taught me the Pomodoro method. Have you all heard of the Pomodoro method?
No.
Okay. So when you're prepping for this test, you need to identify your task for the day. So if Tuesday is your day to study competencies 1 through 4, make that your day, okay? Then our brains can only take so much in at one time. So you're gonna set a timer for 25 minutes where you're gonna review, okay? You're gonna work through the duration of that timer. Then you're going to take a 5-minute break. You're going to give yourself a quiz to see where you are with the different questions, okay? And then you're going to reward yourself. So let's say you take 4 or 5 questions, you get all of them right. Maybe a walk outside, maybe some Starbucks, right? Or, I love lemonade. So maybe you go and get you some lemonade. Do something for yourself. And then you're going to come back and do it all over again. So you need to build in those breaks, because to try to cram for something like this is just not reasonable. Also, your brain won't allow you to do that, okay? How have you all gone into preparing for the test? And I'm gonna pull up this coursework while you all talk to me. Did you study the night before? Did you cram? What did you all do?
So I know for me, like, I use, I think it was 240 Tutoring.
Oh, okay, yeah, I saw that website.
I just like went through the instructional content, but like I did it like maybe like a month ago.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then I just went to take the test, and like most of the questions when I went in, I did not know what to do. What was the answer? Nothing. I didn't understand what was it. So I was like, okay, like during the test, I was just talking to myself, like, okay, you need to go back and study like half of this material because you don't even know like what you're doing right now. But then I ended up coming out with a 184, so I'm like, okay, you know a little something, something. But the other part, you need to go back and I think like my lowest like competency, if I'm not mistaken, was
Oh no.
professional practices in the
Okay.
class. Like, when a teacher gets in trouble, something like that
Yeah.
around there.
Oh, okay. So like and we're going to study that. Those are the later competencies. That comes next week. And I'll have some sample questions for those, but that's good. So if that's what you need to know, then that means you have to really spend time studying that. Okay.
Yes.
So yes, I would definitely take the printout that you get to outline where you stand with various parts of the test, and then use that to figure out, okay, I'm going to hone in on this, I'm going to hone in on that. So here's you all's course calendar or your degree audit form. So you have to think through. So of course the year 1, year 2, you don't need to worry about those classes. You want to get to your preclinical self. Okay? So introduction to diversity for educators, introduction to technology for educators, introduction to education for exceptional children, child and adolescent development, right? This class, diagnosis, assessment, evaluation of children, those courses are helping you with this professional. Okay?
Yeah, the music students, we don't get any of these courses.
The music students don't get these courses?
No. Our
Okay.
curriculum is slightly different. We're only required to take 6 education courses.
Oh, okay. So then this is what
Yeah.
you have to do, Amber. You're going to have to connect with Dr. Shakir or connect with your colleagues and see what they're getting in terms of those textbooks. Okay?
Oh yeah.
All right. Now, Bianca, you took those classes, right?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Yep. And then you want to go back to professional education colloquium, those kinds of things. All of this
That
stuff.
class I haven't taken yet.
Okay. And see, that's the thing too. You want to think through the courses that you took, the textbooks that you read, and how that matches to the actual test. Okay?
Mhm.
Because that's going to help you as well. But yeah, that would be it, ladies. What questions do you all have for me?
I think one issue, like for me, like I guess because I was a transfer student into FAMU, like
Okay.
I didn't know nothing about like taking exams. Like my previous teachers didn't tell me I had to take GKs,
Mhm.
professional ed. So it's like I came in blindsided, and I guess like with limited time, I'm trying to study and try to pass these classes and the exams at the same time.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I feel overwhelmed. Like for the
Can be very
professional
overwhelming.
ed, I feel like I can study for this. Like this will probably be one of the more easier tests I know I can pass, as
Okay.
opposed to like the GK math, which I haven't took a math. Like when I transferred to FAMU, I think I haven't took a math class in like a year.
Wow.
So it was kind of hard for me.
I understand. Yeah, see, that is a struggle. And so what that means is you have to go back to all of that early college content to almost refresh yourself.
Yeah.
I will say that it's a short-term sacrifice for a long-term goal, right? So if we say to ourselves, we are going to, 2 hours a night, we're going to focus, because building your knowledge base over time works. Okay. And so don't get into the rut where you say, oh, it's just too much and I'm not going to have time. Sometimes we have to put some of our extracurricular activities on the back burner just so that we can focus on this. Because from today's simulation with the questions, you all know this material. You really do. You just need to figure out how you're going to take the test.
Yeah.
And so you take your time, you read the questions, you do your process of elimination, and then you have to understand those core competencies so that you're not sitting up here thinking, okay, that this is coming out of left field. You'll say, oh, okay, this is a summative assessment question, just like you all did today. Oh, this is anything with an individualized education plan. This is what this is. Like you knew what to do, but it takes time to build that muscle, y'all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because the last time I went to take the test, I literally had like 15 minutes to spare, like before finishing everything.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I was hoping I would have at least a full hour to go back and look through my questions. Now I only have 15 minutes. And at that test, I had 120 questions. I didn't have that normal 110. So I was just like, oh my goodness. I just went through and made sure all of them were answered at that point because, yeah, I had never really sat through the full 2 hours and 30 minutes while practicing it. So that's something that I've been doing lately.
Yeah.
For the next time because it's a beast. And just to sit there and think about all the questions, like your brain process, after like question 50, your brain is just like, I need a break. But you can't take that break.
And I think it's wise for you to sit and practice it in that way because you're right, you can't really take the break. And then I know you bring in a piece of paper to take notes or something? No, you can't.
No.
They have like a tablet at the desk for you already.
Yeah, so then you'll have to use that. But the only thing is, if there's a question that you want to go back to, you need to jot it down because you're not going to have time to go back through all of those questions. But if you note the ones that gave you pause and then you go back when you have time, you're going to be good. And then remember, you want to answer every question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, to be continued, y'all.